going into this election, what advice would you give clients going into election from the financial advisor lens?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I've been having a lot of those conversations this week with clients. And here's one thing that we do know. Doesn't matter who the president is going to be, the government is going to continue to print money.
Correct.
Right? And with that, it's very easy to say, all right, how do, again, it depends on who you're talking to, my clients are people who are going to benefit from that. Most Americans don't. They are affected from it in an ill way because of, again, the rising price of goods, not understanding inflation and things like that. So what I would encourage people to do is, one, if you have any type of debt, I would consider paying that debt down, especially if those are credit cards, if that's car notes, student loans, like all that bad debt. Not all debt is bad, but I would look at that. The other thing I've been talking to clients about is raising cash, because there's going to be an opportunity here coming to be able to put money to work. And the government is basically trying to tell you cash is trash, right? They want you to invest that money. So you have to make sure that you have a plan of, what am I going to do with money when I get it? Because right now, again, where does money like to go? If you want to make money, there's a lot of opportunities now to place your money somewhere and get a return, because if you sit on it, that's a problem. And one of the things I've been telling people, like, if you have money in the bank right now, you're literally getting 0 point nothing. High yield, air quotes, is what, 1%? Some are giving you like 1 1/4 or something like that. Like, so, but still moving your money simply to some type of account like that until you can figure out what you want to do is game, because you'll make a little bit, of money, not a lot, but it's still, you're getting some meaningful return. So raising cash, looking at, the tax, not from the sense of whether Biden or Trump is going to, but just your personal tax situation, understand that, moves that need to be made. Right. If you run a business, if you have retirement accounts, if you are, a entrepreneur like myself, do you have all of these different things set up to be able to lower your tax burden and things like that? So, me, right? I'm not stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. I'm a long-term investor. I like looking things long-term. I don't really care about short-term pickups like that. I'm big money. I want to go bigger time. So I have a longer time horizon. But for anybody listening, it's raise cash, understanding your personal situation, because the truth is, no matter who the president is, you can do well under any president. And the wealthiest people in this country, and the people that I know, have made money under every president. And they've invested in stocks, have stayed invested. They've bought, real estate. They save money. They understand their benefits at work and ownership. Because here's the thing. Is what I was telling people. It's one thing to say, all right, I'm a CEO on Instagram, or I'm the entrepreneur on Instagram, but when this PPP money hit, or this EDL money, did you get any? Even though you were a CEO, if you ain't have some type of LLC set up, or C Corp or S Corp, you didn't get that money unless you scammed, right? But here's the other part of that. Yeah, people may have scammed and got the money, but here's the second piece that people aren't mentioning at all. The difference between having a personal checking account and a business checking account. 2 reasons. One, if you commingle that money with your personal funds, they're coming to get you at some point. Just wait. But if you have a business account, and your business account meant 2 things. One, if you got that money, you could put it into your business account, pay yourself. 2, if you didn't have a business account, you didn't even see that money, right? And if people simply had an LLC and a business account set up, they were seeing that money. And here's the crazy thing. I got a DM today. I won't out the person, but you know who it is, because you probably follow him on Twitter, because I tag him a lot. This person, super smart, have done well, more money than they could spend. DM me and was like, yo, I see you doing this no layaway thing with paying, paying off layaways and stuff in November. DM me and was like, I got this, whatever. I think they got a check for like $2,200 or something like that. He was like, I'm 99% sure I shouldn't have got this, but simply because I had a business account set up, the government sent it to me. So I want to just use it for something positive. I said, come on, man. Right? Like, so it's just, it's crazy. It's just little things like that, again, people just don't understand having the infrastructure set up. So again, long-winded way of saying, there will be some changes, right? When you look at how banks have performed and, You looked at, energy and all these other things. Yeah, there are certain sectors that are going to do well if Biden wins versus if Trump wins. But the bottom line is, are the majority of Americans and the people that we talking to smart enough to figure that out? No. You know as well as I do, we have to get our people exposed to ownership in equities, ownership in businesses, ownership of startups and venture and all of those things, and keep them invested, keep them investing. I was on Clubhouse, shout to Elgin, and there was a young lady who was like, I invested money in Bitcoin and I'm trying to figure out now if I should take the money and I'm like, listen, Queen, I don't know you, but if you in Bitcoin and you in something like that, you're investing. The whole point in that is to leave that money alone. Don't bother it. Let it do what it's supposed to do. You go live your life. Let Bitcoin do what Bitcoin is going to do. It's still early, right? And Bitcoin is going to benefit from, again, no matter who the president is, but we do know more money is going to be printed. You're going to benefit from that. Yeah. Don't step over dollars to pick up pennies. So again, it's just knowing your personal financial situation, raise your savings, get into the market, get invested. Because again, there's a very thin cloak between, Biden and Trump in terms of they're rich, they have rich friends. The Democrats just like to hide the fact that they ain't, doing the same
Pelosi's
thing.
Worth over $150 million.
Yeah,
and every
come
time I
on,
tell
man.
people, they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So like,
yeah,
should any congressman be worth over $150 million? If you're gonna be mad at the president, if a congresswoman could be $150 million, the president could be a billionaire. Why not? You know what I'm saying?
100%, 100%. Yeah, when the numbers came out on Pelosi, people was like, "What?" Like, come on, man. Democrats got y'all fooled. Like, it's not. It's
two wings on the same bird.
100%. And again, I ain't getting into who doing what. I'm for our people. So, it's whoever you vote for is your business, but we do need to start giving our people the blueprint of building, financial freedom and ultimately wealth. And that's independent of who the president is. Because the truth is, they ain't coming for us. They're not coming to save us. They're not going into Philly and Chicago and Newark and the South Bronx and all that. They're not doing that. So we have to educate our own. But we do need to get our folks, and I'll end on this point. This is the biggest, if I don't say nothing else, this is it. The IRS put out a chart of the wealthiest people in the country versus the poorest. Couple things stand out. There are 10% of people in America that make $15,000 or less a year. That is staggering. 10% make $15,000 less a year. At the top end, right? Not necessarily a number. We know what's ridiculous, right? I think the wealthiest people since COVID hit, right? They went from 1.8 trillion to 2.8 trillion, right? Total, right? The richest people of net worth, $1 trillion, literally over the last couple of months.
Just in the pandemic, just in
the
pandemic.
Pandemic. Like you said, you posted something on Instagram a while ago. It was like, y'all, like, it was something about how it was that their net worth went up and they closing stores and closing all this stuff down. Meanwhile, they making billions and trillions. Like, pandemic. That's what you call it, right?
Exactly.
The pandemic.
And people, like, it's so funny. Like, even like a company like WeWork, which my girl actually worked for, and a couple people she knows. So like a company like WeWork goes out of business, SoftBank. I mean, doesn't go out of business, it's still operating, but they essentially severely cut staff back, did crazy layoffs. And, SoftBank, who owns WeWork, takes bread, makes option bets, and makes like $4 billion in like the first quarter of the pandemic after it hit. So it's like that, and the $4 billion was like 25. I think WeWork was valued at, they lost like 20 something billion off WeWork, and that was $4 billion they made back in a quarter. You know what I'm saying? Just off of option bets. So again, like people really don't realize like how much of a wealth transfer is happening, and a lot of that is the reason why I think a lot of attention is focused on COVID as opposed to what's really happening. Because this wealth transfer is going to be more severe than any of the wars we've had, probably all the wars we've had combined. You know what I'm saying?
100%. The greatest wealth transfer in the history of the world is on. And it's like, if people don't see that, again, we don't teach our own, we have to get them to understand that, now's the time to pay attention to this stuff and educate them on how to do it. And that's really what this is about. So I say all that to say, when you look at that chart, at the top of that chart of the richest people, it was these big blocks of equity and big blocks of stock and big blocks of personal interest in businesses. And as you came to the bottom of their chart, it was this really tiny, thin sleeve of homes, cars, all this other stuff. And as you scrolled over to the left, as you went down in income, it was bigger and bigger in houses and cars and consumables, right? So you start to see that no matter who the president is, the majority of people lock their money and their time into cars, into houses, into consumable goods and things that don't produce value. And that's just clearly visible. And I wish somebody would lie to me and tell me that's not on purpose. That's the plan, bro. Absolutely. They want to keep the people in the middle. That's why the middle class has shrunk into nothing. That's why they keep, they tell you go to college and then get your degree and then get this job. And then, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that mindset.
Look at the process of a business loan versus a car loan.
Yep.
Like anybody can get a
that's
car
game
loan.
too.
You know what I'm saying? 100%. Like that's just going right into the consumables. They make acquiring debt for consumables extremely
very
easy.
Yep.
And to take on debt to actually flip it, they make that extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm. Big game there.
So now the other lens I want, like going into this election, now that you're like a C-level executive, with other C-level executives, how are C-level executives looking at this election, coming into this election without knowing the results? What's the game plan in general that you're hearing amongst other executives like yourself?
That's a fantastic question. One is you're starting to see they realize it's going to be a perpetual low rate environment, and the government is going to print. So it's a couple of things. You are hearing conversations about raising cash. You're hearing conversations about, I just had a conversation the other day with one. He said, I'm extremely bullish on alternatives. He's like, again, it could be gold, it could be Bitcoin, it could be farmland, it could be whatever. He's like, I'm really bullish on alternatives, but you're seeing a collective mindset of we have to find really, we have to get defensive, right? That's a little bit of raising cash. That's a little bit of getting in gold and Bitcoin and things like that, right? Paul Tudor Jones, again, right, has one of the richest men in the country came out and said, look, it's the fastest horse in the race is Bitcoin. And there are some things there that you should be paying attention to, right? And again, there's some people who are looking at saying, all right, well, let's look at the landscape. We're not going to get stimulus, which is terrible. So between now and January, a lot of small businesses and things are going to shut down. So people are starting to look at that. White collar layoffs are starting to happen, which is crazy. You look at Charles Schwab and the people that they're laying off. IBM is laying off folks. So people are underestimating the white collar layoffs that are happening now. So we are heading into a period of a lot of uncertainty, right? And then you add in the fact of, what is the dollar going to do? People saying, oh, well, there's global, right, suppression of, the currencies all around the world, the dollar, but everywhere. But the truth is this, right? Daniel Martino Booth and a lot of people on Twitter saying, look, y'all keep talking crap about the dollar, but when everything goes to hell, where do people go? They go on the dollar. They got to come back to the dollar.
If the whole world is burning, America's still the strongest house at the end of the day.
100%. It's the best house in a bad neighborhood. Like, that's just what it is. So, and I love that thought process because it's like, yeah, it's easy to be, and the crypto folks go too far. The dollar ain't going to be replaced no time soon. Is it in trouble in some ways? Yeah, but that's good. These things take centuries of time to play out. But right now, again, go back to March, that week in March, right? The 11th, the 12th, the 13th, myself and others, people lost a lot of business. They lost a lot of their jobs. They lost an opportunity. That was a rough 3 days for me. I'm like, woof. Like, I didn't know what to do. As did a lot of people. I'm like, oh my God. But you saw everybody running for the gates and there weren't enough dollars, right? Like, it's just so because people are buying them up. And when you're selling risky stuff, you need a safe haven. The safe haven is the dollar. Exactly. It wasn't Bitcoin. Everything went to hell. So really smart people at C-level folks now, again, are looking across the landscape and saying, okay, well, where, like the dude from MicroStrategy said, look, I'm going in on Bitcoin, right? Like that's my thing. Other folks like Ray Dalio is saying, look, look at the landscape here, right? Or